Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another live stream. Israel has been intensifying its attacks in Lebanon. They've been breaching the ceasefire regularly, as they have been with the Gaza Strip. Many terror attacks inside of Lebanon and in Gaza, killing innocent civilians on a regular basis. This is primarily coming due to the impunity that Israel gets primarily from the United States administration, and also the lack of decisive measures coming from the countries surrounding Israel. Now, however, they targeted a very senior figure in Hizbullah, a top commander in the armed wing of Hizbullah, and they killed him in Beirut, in the southern suburb of Beirut, alongside 4 others. 25 were wounded, several innocent civilians, and there were other casualties as well, apart from those who Israel targeted in that attack on Beirut. This is the most significant targeted assassination that Israel has done in a long time. They constantly say that they kill people, like we killed this member of Hezbollah and we killed that person. The other day they targeted a group of people and they said they were Hamas in Lebanon. And you know, they lie more than they breathe. But this time we had a confirmation from the resistance, therefore we take it as a fact, because the resistance in Lebanon confirmed. So it's not assuming what Israel said is true. No, Israel said that, and then the Lebanese resistance confirmed. What was funny, however, though, is that Israel published a different image to the person who was killed, indicating that what? Initially, in the initial reports, and only after Hezbollah confirmed, Israel published his image. The initial image was for someone different. This indicates that Israel didn't necessarily know how the man looked, but they probably had interception of some communication of the individual, and then they eventually targeted him. What we know about him so far is the fact that he has been from one of the founding figures in Hezbollah, especially their armed group, and he has been active for a very long time and participated in the supporting front against the genocide pedophile state when Hezbollah started to take actions against Israel on the 8th of October, as Hezbollah opened the first front outside of Palestine to support the Palestinian resistance and people in Gaza, not to open an all-out war front, but only as a supporting front. This was what was mentioned by Hezbollah at the time. Now, of course, they started to continue breaching the ceasefire, although there's a brokered ceasefire between them and the Lebanese, the French, and the American. But of course, Israel and the United States of America, both the administrations had this side agreement, you know, the side agreement. They always have something dodgy on the side that allowed Israel to continue the operations. So basically, we will tell the world that there's a ceasefire, but you can continue killing. That's the American-Israeli logic. So they continued to kill and target. Now, we know that this man was very influential, especially seeing as there were many comments coming from the several resistance movements in the region, talking about the importance of him, or at least, you know, paying respect to the man. One of them was, of course, Al-Qassam brigades in Gaza, the Salah ad-Din brigades in Gaza, in Palestine, and several other movements as well, confirming that, of course, you know, he was supportive of the Palestinian people, and they hailed his support for the resistance in the Battle of Al-Aqsa. But there was one very important comment out of all of these comments, and that comment came from none other than Ali Larijani, the secretary of the supreme leader for national security in Iran, who just said the following. He said that Netanyahu will continue his adventures until everyone realizes that there is no way left but to confront this entity. That's Iran. That's the grandfather of resistance. That's the country of the resistance. That's the country that supports all of the resistance groups in the region against the cancer of Israel. Now his statement bears a lot. That's quite a heavy statement coming from Iran, and we're not talking about like an individual. No, that's the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council in Iran, who is a very, very close figure to the supreme leader of Iran, who makes the ultimate decisions. What is he saying? Well, there are a couple of things here. Number one, well, a message to the pathetic governments in the region. The pathetic governments that don't do anything, sitting there watching a genocide happening and saying, yeah, we diplomacy and we can't because we can't, and what if this happens? And he said that Netanyahu will continue his adventures. Basically, the Netanyahu's adventures are adventures of blood and murder and slaughter. That's the Zionist adventure. That's Israel's adventures. Spilling the blood of infants. So that's a message to them, to the pathetic governments, as in wake up. And they need to realize that, well, that's it. There's nothing left but to confront them. Israel is constantly attacking Syria, no response, constantly attacking Lebanon. Hizbullah still adhering to the agreement, probably to have a different reality at some point, and reality is changing because, well, it's Israel that's breaching the ceasefire for the past 2 years. I mean, if you tell a donkey the scenario in Lebanon, they'll understand. But unfortunately, some individuals don't have the intelligence of donkeys in their understanding of the situation, as in Israel is breaching. But what do you want? You know, some of these people who have this pathetic notion that, oh no, it's the problem of the resistance, and why did you start, and why did you do that, and what have you. Some of them trying and coat it with like a religious backing. Some of the hypocrite Muslim scholars in the region. Some of them for sectarian purposes too, ideological purposes. But they've been exposed. They're naked now in front of the whole world. We see them for what they are exactly. And although, of course, some of these people are still talking, it's becoming more and more evident that Israel isn't going to stop. Yeah, they want to, well, Netanyahu might want to have certain things for his own political gain or for political purposes, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this is a genocidal entity here, and they're going to continue killing people. As in, what? Is it acceptable for them to have free-range destruction? Look at this. That was the... Look at the destruction. I mean, they said it's a targeted assassination. But again, of course, innocent civilians get killed in these Israeli attacks. And they will continue to bomb these Arab states up until they understand that there's, it's inevitable. We have to eventually target them because these people are not going to stop. The Israelis are bloodthirsty. It's a bloodthirsty nation built on blood and terrorism and slaughter and infant killing and massacres. Nothing's going to stop up until, well, they learn the lesson. Why did their war with Iran end in 12 days? Because they got a beating. Why did they have to agree to ceasefires both with Lebanon and Gaza, despite the fact that they're not in, well, optimal conditions, because Israel constantly breaches? Because they faced resistance. Otherwise, they wouldn't have even adhered to anything called the ceasefire. They would have continued. They would have continued and occupied more territories and killed even more people It's important to note that, because, you know, some people will say, well, okay, well, what did this bring anything? Yeah, but it would have been much more had they been able to. But the fact of the matter is, as soon as they got in several meters in Lebanon, they were facing fierce resistance from the Lebanese. And then it reached a point where there was this agreement. And then, of course, this side agreement with the United States enabled them to continue these assassinations because, well, the United States is a participant in this, in all of this. That's killing, and that's the United States with Israel, as in the United States administration. Tom Barak is the man in charge of Lebanon from the United States perspective. We recently found out that he was in the Epstein files. And guess what the message was? The message that Epstein sent to Tom Barak: send me a picture of you with a child. He was probably threatening him, like, to do something. That's why you'll see Tom Barak, like, insisting and keen on the destruction and everything for Israeli purposes. Think about it. What does it have to do with anything with the United States? The United States put itself in trouble when they meddled and interfered in foreign countries. When they started mass wars. And thankfully, many Americans realize that now. Yeah, we understand why. We get why. Well, because we went there and we killed 1 million people here and there. Otherwise, well, it's Israel dragging the United States into these wars. And of course, we have a cartel. We have a cartel that's benefiting. The military-industrial complex, people who profiteer from these wars, finance them, finance the destruction and the rebuilding. So we have multiple parties who enjoy destruction because they make profits out of the destruction. That, by the way, is a sign that things can escalate. Hezbollah officially said that we are studying our response. We're coordinating with the state, but the response or the decision of the response will be in the hands of the resistance. So they didn't say, like, we're going to agree with the government to something about it. They said, if we want to respond, the resistance will make a decision to respond. Now, judging by the pattern, because many people will want to know, like, what are they going to do now? What is Hezbollah going to do? Are they going to continue what they call the strategic patience, or are they going to bomb child-killing murderers somewhere or attack an Israeli location? The pattern of attacks was as follows. When Israel was breaching the ceasefire in Lebanon, even if they claimed to have killed figures in Hezbollah, Hezbollah didn't respond. When they targeted in the past 2 years prominent figures in Hezbollah, they responded. As a matter of fact, the escalation that led to an almost all-out war was when the genocide state killed one of their leaders called Fuad Shukr. And then things started to escalate from then onwards, up until it reached full-throttle war between Lebanon and Israel, albeit not not all of the tools were broken in that confrontation. Let's take it at that. So it wasn't like an all-out and no boundaries type of war. It wasn't like that. But Israel did target civilians. They killed thousands of innocent Lebanese people. And Hezbollah conducted very significant attacks, and the highlight of these attacks was the assassination attempt against Benjamin Netanyahu when he was there. He was in his home. They had a drone. It exploded just outside of his bedroom window. That was bulletproof, of course. The man is petrified. So he tried to calm people down afterwards, and then we saw a video of him wearing civilian outfit, walking in his garden, saying, oh, I'm fine, and which again proved that actually he was there, which indicates that Hezbollah had intelligence against Benjamin Netanyahu. Judging by that, it's very likely that they will respond. That response wouldn't necessarily be a response that would attract an all-out response from Israel, but some sort of a response. In my assumption, based on my reading of the context of the confrontation between Israel and the Lebanese resistance for the past 2 years, any assassination of a senior figure would be met with a response. Whether it's now or tomorrow or in a few weeks or in a few months, by the way, because some of these responses are delayed. And if we look at the tactics, sometimes they do take their time because they would want to choose a certain target or have a substantial response that would be effective, but in a way to tell Israel, well, you know, we responded, but it was still very calculated. And if we even look at Iran, from an Iranian perspective, sometimes the response was months upon months. We waited, and then Iran did respond, or 3 times, to Israeli terror actions against the Iranian state and Iranian officials. Now, all of this, of course, is happening here, and Israel is causing all of the destruction. But Donald Trump now is considering a move. He's considering a move to label the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. Ooh, what happened, Mr. President? I'll tell you exactly what happened if you're surprised. I mean, don't be surprised. The Muslim Brotherhood, they killed 70,000 people in the past 2 years. The Muslim Brotherhood killed 30,000 innocent women and children. The Muslim Brotherhood attacked 10 countries in the past 2 years. They killed people from dozens of nationalities, including 13 Americans. That's what the Muslim Brotherhood is doing. The Muslim Brotherhood has a very, very strong lobby in the United States that steers US politics internally and abroad. Ben Shapiro, Mike Levin, Muslim Brotherhood. Laura Loomer. The Muslim Brotherhood controls the media. They're way too powerful. They shift public opinion in the United States. The Muslim Brotherhood has an allegiance, their loyalty lies with a caliphate outside of the United States. So the Muslim Brotherhood members who claim to be Americans actually have loyalty for a foreign nation based on religious purposes. That's why he wants to ban the Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood has a very, very strong lobby in the United States that buys politicians. It's called AIPAC. The Muslim Brotherhood have too much influence within the organizations in the United States, whether conservative organizations or left-wing and they're causing destabilization in the world. The Muslim Brotherhood are bringing the world closer to a nuclear war that may end humanity. That's why he's banning the Muslim Brotherhood. And I really do hope that you get the sarcasm here, you know. Just switch everything that I said and turn it on Israel, not the side that Trump is labeling a foreign terrorist organization. And why is he doing that? He's doing that to deflect. Whenever you hear anything called Islamic terrorism, this reprehensible term, promoted even by Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, think about the Zionists and deflection. Even during the past 2 years, whenever you speak about the genocide in Gaza, they'll tell you something about the Muslim Brotherhood or whatever. It's like, I'm talking about you killing people. So that's a Zionist move to deflect. And that's also a move for Donald Trump to try and be appealing to certain Christian elements in the United States who don't like the Muslim Brotherhood and still buy into this whole propaganda of radicalism about garbage. That really, I mean, many of them are aware of what's happening. Many of them aware that this little tiny state that controls their politics and buys their politicians is steering US foreign policy to have a clash with the Muslim world so that they can be saved and sit down there. That's why he's begging to drag the United States into war with Iran. The Muslim world and the Christian world will battle, and who's going to be the happy clappy party? Israel. That's why he's labeling the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. That's one. And of course, with this attempt to be appealing to certain Christian fundamentalists, or even some Christian elements in the United States who consider themselves nationalists, it isn't going to work because they realize the game by now. They know exactly the influence that I was talking about. Another thing you need to think about here is any person, group, organization, or country that are labeled by the administration, or to be more accurate, the regime of the United States or Britain or another genocide supporting regime in Europe or anywhere across the world, including in some Arab and Muslim states, know that that group or movement or people are doing something against Israel. In general, like that's generally speaking. That might not be accurate to some of the psyops that they operate and then they label, but then Israel is involved somehow in the picture. And now he thinks that, oh, well, yeah, well, now we can bring the, we will start talking about the Muslim Brotherhood instead of talking about Israel. What did the Muslim Brotherhood do to you? Firstly, is there a Muslim Brotherhood organization like this? The Muslim Brotherhood is a smaller organization than before. They were a big organization, but now in their main base in Egypt, really, there is no organizational structure. There are remnants of the Muslim Brotherhood here and there, and mostly it's an ideological effect on some movements. Some of them agree with them, some of them have refined thoughts, and some of them departed from their ideology. That's it. But the lobby that's there, that pledges allegiance to a foreign country, not America first, America second and third and fourth. They're there. They're the ones that were there. The Israeli lobby in the United States, AIPAC, and all of your politicians and all of those shills online like Ben Shapiro and Cohen, the Daily Wire, and all of that. These are the people who you should be worried about. People who pretend to care about the United States and American and Western values, and then support genocide and the butchering of infants and children. People like Randy Fine, a morbidly obese genocide-supporting pig who mocks the starvation of children in Gaza. He looks like he's about to die, by the way. He looks like he's about to die in any second. But if he doesn't go to his funeral, because he might pop. Like what they said happened to King Henry VIII. Don't go to Randy Fine's funeral if he dies soon. So that's why he's doing that. Deporting people who support Palestine, having these new anti-Semitism laws in the United States. Now they're even trying to attack Nick Fuentes now with a bill, and anyone who speaks about Israel. What does that all show you? That shows you that they're losing big time. They're really, really losing big time. And all of these attempts are not going to take away from the true reality of, firstly, Trump himself, who is nothing but a Zionist stooge. And we've been saying that way before the elections, because we know Trump from his first term. Moved the embassy to Jerusalem, the annexation of the Golan Heights, all of his rhetoric at the time. Some people were fooled by him. But now he's trying to flip things around. And also he is surrounded by people who are pro-Israel, Israel firsters. And that shows you that this movement against Israel in the United States is growing stronger. That's what we understand. All of this deflection, all of these attacks against journalists or alternative media figures and genuine ones, figures who oppose Israel, people who call for the elimination of the Zionist lobby from the United States, that will eventually kill Israel as a country. That's why they're so afraid and they're so scared. And that's, but their problem now is they're not operating in the dark. They thrive in the dark. They operate in the dark. Now they're exposed. They're admitting to pay $7,000 for every influencer who posts something for Israel. They're exposed. Larry Ellison is buying TikTok. عينك عينك, as we say in Arabic, you know, on your eye, right, directly in front of your eyes. Nothing to hide. They're doing all of that and they're exposed. And they think that the people will be fooled by them. No one is fooled by you. You're on your way out. Not the American people, not the global population, no one. Try and deflect from here up until the moon. Nothing is going to work. That's it. But Trump, of course, he is, you know, proving his loyalty to a very large extent up until the last second, trying to see how much it would work, you know. A lot of it is to do with elements in the administration. Like, mind you, I believe that certain things happen in the United States administration even without the knowledge of Trump himself. Statements. There's a lot of, there's a big battle happening from within, and they try and exclude certain elements who might be viewed as critical to Israel, ban someone from taking a position if they have shown views critical to Israel. Israel first. That's them. And these were the main things that I wanted to share with you in this live stream. I'll open the space up for the community, take some questions from you guys, and welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. Everyone participating in the chat, thank you very much. Amanda, Gabe, thank you so much for your super much appreciated. Let's go to, and that's from Amanda. Thank you very much. Let's see if we have, if you won't mind highlighting any questions just so that we don't miss them. Oh, you mean like that one senator who said that he wanted a senator so he could support Israel, Cisco Terrace? Yeah, absolutely. Was it Ted Cruz, wasn't it? I wanted to be a senator so I can support Israel. All I can tell you is that the Epstein file on this man and the paycheck is very hefty. As a matter of fact, let's have a look. Oh, handsome money. Very handsome money. 1.8 million US dollars. That's the publicly stated one, by the way. That's not like everything, because a lot of the money isn't like passed in this way, you know, that obviously. Mizo, is there any news on the stabilization force? Well, the thing that we know is what has been published in recent weeks is that, well, there is no formed force. That's number one. Many of the Arab countries refused to take part because they didn't want to have a role without definition. Many of them said that the role is ambiguous. They didn't really know what they're going to do. Then there were reports that Israel and the United States tried to go to some European countries to make them go and die for Israel. And then they also didn't want to go. And all of them, by the way, said that we don't want to confront Hamas. Imagine that. Hamas petrified the whole world. I mean, they've hurt Israel so badly in Gaza, despite the genocide and starvation and all of that, that everyone learned the lesson. We don't want to be dealing with that kind of thing. And the Israelis are being quite picky on who comes and who doesn't come. You know, they were constantly being against Turkish participation, for example. America didn't rule that out, Trump himself, because he has good ties with the Turkish president. But nothing really has been confirmed so far, because the stabilization force, that was one of the main things that would have caused the problem at the time. Israel wants a completely different role to what the Palestinians want. Israel wants a proxy army that would take on the role of the depraved genocide pedophile army. But what they don't know is that they are exclusive in that department, you know. The genocide, pedophile, diaper, infanticide army, they are the chosen ones in that department. And this is where they're chosen. No one matches them. So they're irreplaceable in many ways. And that's where there's a problem for Israel, being so special. They're very special in the way they kill children, and they're very chosen in how they butcher infants and burn people alive and kill, you know, hospitals and brag about it. You need a very special set of people, a very special set of chosen people to do that. And there are no other chosen people but them. Therefore, no one can do what they did and the way they did it and brag about it too, you know, run over innocent civilians' bodies and then, you know, TikTok it. I mean, who does that? The chosen ones, you know, they're very special in that way. So nothing has been confirmed so far, but there are continued talks that relate to the stabilization force, and there are certain indications that Netanyahu now is trying to take advantage of this period before any sort of arrival of a stabilization force, because regardless of, you know, who they will be formed out of and what they will do exactly, it's going to limit Israel's actions in Gaza even further. Then whether, yes, believe it or not, even with them killing people daily and breaching the ceasefire constantly, that's still less than before, less than what used to happen before. That was from Mizu or Mizo. Okay, let's go to your next question. Mahib says, Salam Ahmed, thoughts on continuous bombing on Lebanon, including today. Why is Hizbullah not responding? Yes, that's because they had this agreement with the United States that enabled them to continue targeting Lebanon in that side agreement. So that's a continuation of that. And Netanyahu wants to drag Lebanon to an all-out war. Why is Hezbollah not responding? Because, well, they want to show everyone they do adhere to the ceasefire agreement. But like I said before, whenever they had a significant figure targeted and they confirmed it, usually their confirmation indicates response. That's why they confirmed. All right, so that's again, that's an assumption from me, by the way. That's my take. It's not like I'm saying they surely will know, but whenever they did confirm that quickly and said, you know, this person was a commander, usually they responded. So in essence, we can take that confirmation of the assassination as an intention to respond. That's what I have to say about that, because previously they did. Again, they could be making a different decision, who knows? And also, Farhad, Hizbullah is preparing to fight, of course. I mean, they have been preparing for a very long time, and they are prepared. And the Israelis now confirm that Hizbullah have regained all of their power from anything they lost. Today, Israel said that, Israeli sources said that Hizbullah recovered on every level and got back everything that they lost, despite the rise of a government that's hostile to them in Syria, despite all of the changes, despite the Israeli attacks, despite all of that. Israel said that they are prepared. They have gathered all of their power. And that's, you know, it's understandable, you know, it's inevitable that they're going to be preparing. And I think that, you know, the next round of explosion is probably just going to be a matter of time. Hi, Mahmoud. Kudum. Do you think Iran will launch a second round against Israel? Well, we hope so. I mean, someone has to stop these crimes from happening. And from an Iranian perspective, they do know very well that it's coming. Israel knows it's coming. Both sides are preparing very, very well. Iran is fully ready. Israel, not so sure. And from an Iranian perspective and from an Israeli perspective, it's a case of who will fire the first shot. Is someone going to have a preemptive strike? Are they going to use a surprise element? And what would they want to gain out of it? Now, if we contextualize, again, I always like to contextualize, Iran never initiated a direct attack on Israel before. They only like to use the support of the resistance movements, and they can decide what to do and what not to do, because they have a high level of independence. But Iran responded when Israel attacked it. Now, there are elements within the Iranian establishment who believe that they need to attack Israel first. And it wouldn't be surprising to see anyone from Iran, well, pushing for that attack initially on Israel. And again, you wouldn't even call it an attack. Everything that is done against Israel is a response to their barbarity and depravity and genocide and breaching of international law. Countries, listen to this very carefully, and everyone listen to this very carefully. The countries that are not attacking Israel now are breaching international law, are not adhering to international law. They are entitled by international law to go and stop a genocide. They're obliged to and encouraged to by international law. But because there's a monopoly on international law, and we all know how the system is flawed, with permanent members of the Security Council and the UN being an extension or slash proxy slash soft power of the United States, very much like what that Western leader told the IC chief prosecutor at the time, Karim Khan, that international law is for Africa and Putin. It's not for the West. That's what they do. But technically, if we're talking about it from legal terms, by international law, you have to go and implement it. That's why the only country that was constantly implementing international law is Yemen. because they were enforcing an embargo on an entity committing a genocide against innocent civilians, and international law calls upon nations to stop that country from committing a genocide by any means necessary, including military intervention. So all of them are useless, apart from Yemen, because they were always open. And people need to understand that. People need to hear this, because you don't hear this on, of course, mainstream media or corporate media, or even from people who pretend themselves to be like, oh yeah, we're against this one. Say it as it is. Why did they suppress a campaign on social media where everyone from all across the world, from America, from Europe, from Africa, from Asia, but mostly European, by the way, and mostly white European, calling for military intervention against Israel? Why did they suppress that campaign on social media? It hits too hard, too close. No, you can't touch them. You're an anti-Semite. The reality is, the countries surrounding Israel, and all of the countries globally, by the way, are obliged to militarily intervene to take down this apartheid regime, butchering little babies every single day. Enough is enough. So Iran may well wake up at one point and say, do you know what? We have enough of these people. Really, enough is enough. Now is the time to take action. Bondui, what happened to the resistance fighters trapped in the south of Gaza tunnels? Israel released an image of people with their hands tied behind their back, and we can see them from behind. So they didn't publish their images, their faces, like what they do when they publish some of their military leaders. They publish them from behind. You can see their ugly heads from the back. Why is that? You have something to hide. With their depraved army, it's because they don't want them to be chased around by multiple countries, for killing children and raping and trafficking organs and stuff like that. For the Palestinian resistance, well, if you caught Palestinian resistance fighters, show us the faces. Israel said that we killed some of them. They went out of the tunnel. Garbage propaganda. We don't believe anything that they say unless there's a verification on the ground. Even with that move of that man who supposedly came and targeted them, that they used as a pretext to go and kill more people, that's not the resistance. They don't do these things. So we really don't know. We really don't know. And from Hamas's perspective, they said that they can stay there or they can go back to the areas in the yellow line, which indicates that they have what they need to continue. Israel is saying, oh, they're not running out of water and they're running out of this and that. Again, all Israeli propaganda. So a lot of the information hasn't actually been made public. And that's part of the Zionist psychological warfare. The Palestinian resistance, they do not surrender. You need to understand that very well. And they released a statement that they do not surrender and will not surrender. Bondwi, do you have any opinion on the new threat to Candace Owens' life? I'm not surprised. These people in America, they received multiple death threats. Listen, people like us who constantly speak, they get death threats. Whether you speak or you don't speak about them. But these, some of the American ones who get the death threats, it's actually more serious. There's a big reason to believe that Charlie Kirk, despite him being a Zionist for so long, when he started to slightly flip, they killed him. Nick Fuentes had multiple death threats. There was a man shooting outside of his house once who killed people before him. And Candace Owens, it's not surprising. Again, even though she was in the Daily Wire, she was with Ben Shapiro and all of these people, all of that time, again, so we're talking about people with, some of them had recent awakening. unlike others. Like if you talk about like Nick Fuentes, he was speaking about Israel from a long time ago. And if Nick Fuentes is watching the show, I hope you come on the show, Nick. Please do contact me. I'd love to have you on and have a chat. So it's not surprising. It isn't surprising. And I hope that that won't deter them from speaking. And I don't think it will. I don't think it will. But again, this entity of terror, this is how they operate. That's terrorism. They do everything to intimidate people. You see, the definition of terrorism is what Western governments have been doing all along. Intimidating people with the threat of violence or being incarcerated or whatever for political purposes, based on political ideology. And they don't like the fact now that more people are speaking up bravely and not submitting to their campaigns. Game over. It's over for them. There's no going back. Up until Zionism is wiped off the face of the earth. It's an ideology of terror, of apartheid, of supremacy, of everything despicable you can think of, and it needs to be eliminated. They need to take action against the Israeli establishment, take them off completely, and instill a normal government that respects everyone regardless of their race or religion. Is that too difficult? Isn't that part of your values that you constantly preach? Or is the Jewish supremacist entity above everyone? Why do they have a blank check? Is there a reason for that? We're sick of it. And everyone is sick of it. And no one is going to intimidate anyone anymore. Game over. Try death threats, try police, try everything. It's not going to work. We're going way too far. And these decrepit, depraved Zionists thought that by this de-escalation, oh yeah, now we'll start working on rebranding, on how we become, Zionist light, and how we become acceptable to the world who doesn't understand us, who we don't know why they hate us. Don't know why they hate you. Maybe because you commit bloodbaths against infants in incubators. Maybe, just maybe. Maybe because your soldiers brag about running over civilians with bulldozers. Just maybe. Maybe because your rapists and pedophiles come on Israeli national media and they get clapped for by the Israeli public. Just maybe. Maybe. But this case of national psychosis and psychopathy in Israel is going to be studied in history. The younger generations are going to look back at this period and think, what on earth? What? Was this really happening? And now they try and, make them normal by trying to scare you with this whole anti-Semitism garbage, unsubstantiated garbage of people who have nothing to do with Semitism. And then all of these death threats and laws and bills, it shows you how petrified they are. Petrified. Next thing, their politicians will be wearing nappies and moving around from how scared they are. Not just their TikTok monsters. And again, I hope that none of them back down. I am not Candace Owens or any of the people who will bravely change their opinion. That's an honorable thing. Do you know why? Because you go against what you believed in for a very long time. Or the people who have never really cared about, the Zionist lobby or any of that. Any news on Rafah crossing opening? No, they haven't opened it. The United Nations said that they have 6,000 trucks. UNRWA, they have 6,000 trucks who have been outside the borders of Gaza, some of them for over a year. And Israel doesn't allow them in. That's from the Egyptian side, that's from the Israeli side. 6,000. They can feed more families. They can reduce costs. They can help with so much. There are ready-made tents to help people shelter with the winter. There is baby formula. There is medical aid. Israel will not allow the majority of it to go in. Why? Because they are continuing a campaign of genocide against the Palestinian people by making life conditions unbearable for the people. That's why. And they're continuing with that. They're continuing with that. Okay, let's go to take a couple of more questions. What is the position of the pro-Saudi government of Lebanon? Well, the government of Lebanon is shameful, just as shameful as the pathetic Palestinian Authority that's led by Abu Mazen, and just as pathetic as many of the Arab regimes. They have a country next to them with a declared intention of occupying their lands and taking over. And what some of their stupid representatives say is we need to disarm the only thing that deters that entity from completely occupying. I'm telling you, Gaza exposed everyone. It exposed every single one. It exposed the Arab regimes. It exposed Western regimes' hypocrisy. It exposed people as individuals, whether they stood up against this and supported human rights and morality and human values, or they didn't. It really exposed everyone. If you want to know who a person is, tell them, what do you think about Gaza? Just tell them that. You'll know the intentions. So they're pathetic. But again, what Hizbullah did with this waiting thing and not responding is proving them to be ineffective and pathetic, and proving their position right. And what they also want to always hide is the fact that, well, you wouldn't have had a Lebanon had it not been for the Lebanese resistance. It would have been part of Israel a long time ago. Israel was occupying areas up until Beirut. Who expelled them? The Lebanese resistance. In some cases with the support of some Palestinian resistance movements, by the way, because there are many refugees in Lebanon too. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't have had a country on the map, or a fraction of that country. Israel had an army called the South Lebanon Army, led by a man called Antoine Lahed. When the South was liberated, they ran like dogs, like cowards to Israel, and then they were scattered all across when the Lebanese resistance liberated south of Lebanon. And they don't want to tell you that, because they want to show you that anything that opposes them is ineffective. Israel's destruction, Israel's genocide, Israel's barbarism, backed by the United States administration and anyone else, by the way, is to show you and embed it in your head that resistance is ineffective against us. It doesn't work. And for you to disregard the facts on the ground that this resistance has worked. Egypt liberated Sinai through armed resistance. It was on the army, the state. Lebanon liberated South Lebanon with resistance. Gaza was liberated through resistance. But they want to make it out to be as if, you know, there's no hope for you. Don't try and do that. And you also added, if Hezbollah responds with the possible reaction of the Lebanese government, could another civil war break out in Lebanon? I don't think another civil war will break out in Lebanon, personally. They understand that the civil war doesn't serve anyone but their worst enemies. There are some venomous elements within Lebanon who want a civil war and who have participated in civil war previously and who massacred innocent civilians. And they're still there. Because listen, the whole Lebanese system is corrupt. It's based on sectarianism, sectarian divide. It's despicable. But all of them know that civil war doesn't serve them. It does not serve them. Because they're going to be attacking each other and many innocent people will die. If Iran strikes first, what could be their exact military objectives against Israel? Some of the military objectives will be similar to the previous ones that they attacked, like, for example, air bases, military bases, and strategic locations, for example, like command and control areas. They might extend it to political locations, like the Israeli Knesset. They might extend that to other sensitive locations. Like Iran totally wiped off Israel's biggest nuclear and scientific research center, the Weizmann Institute. It completely wiped off. Several locations were completely destroyed in Israel by the Iranian missiles. Military bases, hangars that had F-35s in them. Israel, of course, tried to hide it as much as possible, but then, of course, we saw the satellite images, and I published them at the time during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran. So they would have many targets, by the way, and the longer the time goes by, the bigger the targets or the heavier the targets would be. And again, with them, it would be a matter of whether they decide to carry out the first strike against Israel or wait for an Israeli attack against them so that they can carry out a response. We'll wrap it up here, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Michael McIntyre and Amanda Gaba, thank you for your supers. Everyone who participated in the chat, thank you very much. I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow with either a live or a video. In the meantime, everyone, stay blessed, take care, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.